Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Monday, June 30th, and recruiting season is here. Commitment season is here because weekends like the one that we just had and the one that's coming up are why you are here. It's why you're locked into recruiting. It's why you're subscribed to this channel. And it's all happening, an avalanche of commitments over the weekend, some big ones. We're going to break it all down. But first, it's that announcement that I've been teasing. You guys have heard the rumors. The ownership group behind On3, led by Shannon Terry, reached an agreement to acquire Rivals from Yahoo Sports. Yes, that Rivals, the recruiting icon, the original authority in recruiting in high school sports. Now, On3 will maintain its focus on college sports coverage, the transfer portal, but us here on this channel, we will be known as Rivals. We are the recruiting arm of On3. So it's a great legacy brand, proud to be a part of it. On the user end, nothing's going to change for you guys. Our videos won't change. Well, our videos could change a little because we're going to acquire about 100 new sites from Rivals, which means more experts. So if there's a favorite Rivals expert of yours that you want to see appear on this channel, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll try to get them on here soon. So with that being said, let's start the show. Let's bring in On3 national analyst Steve Wiltfong. And where do you want to start? We'll start with Alabama. The Tide are absolutely red hot after 5-star commitments from E.J. Crowell last week and then Xavier Griffin on Sunday afternoon. Steve, take us behind these two.
Well, it was never not going to be Alabama for Xavier Crowell, the in-state running back who reclassified from 2027 to 2026. And despite the camp telling Texas and Georgia they were in great position, it was always Alabama, proximity to home, the opportunity to come in and play right away. And at 215 pounds, his ability to run between the tackles, catch the football. He has the traits that you're looking for to be an instant impact player on the next level in the SEC. Just the comfortability he has around the school, players in the locker room, just regular students at Alabama. Alabama was always going to be tough to beat for Xavier Crowell. Texas, Georgia, other programs shot their shot, Auburn. But he is one of the jewels of this Alabama class that ranks number 7 nationally. So is Xavier Griffin, who was at one point an early commit to USC. But when he decommitted from the Trojans, I pretty quickly put in an On3 RPM in favor of Alabama. Now, certainly Texas, Ohio State, and Florida State may have given him some things to think about since he reopened his process, but he took his official visits. He grew up in Alabama, guys. The program he always saw himself playing at, the relationship with Christian Robinson, the scheme, the way they're going to use him as a linebacker, the way they're going to use him as a pass rusher, proximity to family. He's got family, grandparents in Tuscaloosa, then certainly NIL. Alabama able to get it done for Griffin and Crowell, 2 major recruiting wins for the Tide over the weekend.
Yeah, and Saul, you reported a new wrinkle with Tide recruiting. They're closing in on a second quarterback commit. It feels like just a week ago we were talking about them landing their first quarterback in this class.
Yeah, so Jet Tamala is already in the fold for Alabama. They flipped him from Iowa State. Now all hands on deck for Taden Kawa, the number 12 ranked quarterback in the country per On3. Jet Tamala, number 10. Taden Kawa, number 12. He took an official visit to Alabama the weekend of June 20th. I saw him this week at the Overtime OT7 playoff finals down in South Florida. And he told me Alabama is setting the pace in his recruitment following his official visit. Time spent with Coach Grubb, Coach DeBoer, Coach Sheridan, the offense, the tradition, the way they can prepare quarterbacks to play at the highest level. I think Alabama and Taden Kawa are in final conversations now, those NIL details. And if those conversations continue to trend well, I think he'll be QB2 for Alabama in 2026. Why 2 quarterbacks, Josh? Well, it's a fluid era, right? You got Ty Simpson, the starter going into the season, Austin Mack, Keelan Russell battling for QB2, and then you want to get some depth behind those guys on the roster. Have 4 scholarship quarterbacks if you can in Tuscaloosa. So that's why they want to take 2. They have a chance to get 2 really good ones.
So last week was a big week for the Tide, and it sounds, Steve, like this is also going to be another big week for Bama.
Well, they could lock in on 3 receivers following his official visit to Alabama in June. I predicted Tennessee product Owen Cabell to Alabama. I think he's the next guy up to be in the fold for them. Brian Williams is a receiver from Florida, who I also think they land. And then on June 2nd or July 2nd is the big one. 5-star Sedarian Morgan, spent some time with him at the overtime OT7 finals, been talking to various sources about his recruitment. He says 5 are still in play: Alabama, Auburn, Colorado, Florida, and Georgia. He played 7-on-7 with Jared Curtis, Georgia quarterback commit, over the weekend. But I think Alabama remains in firm control of this recruitment. I think he ultimately pops for the Crimson Tide. 2 more blue chippers, 1 5-star, 1 top 50 player. Safety Jaira Edwards is the 5-star. He is committing on July 5th. I have an on-3 RPM in favor of Alabama. He basically shut down his process after taking his official visit to Tuscaloosa in early June. That is straight up Clemson style, Josh. When they take a visit, shut down their recruitment, and announce later, everybody in Alabama Nation will be celebrating that one if he does indeed pick the Tide like we think he will. And then Nolan Wilson, number 3 defensive lineman in the country per on-3. He will commit on July 4th. I like Alabama right now. Miami will continue to try and change that. But Alabama, number 7 class in the country, they got a chance to be in the top 5 by the end of the week.
Bama fans, top 5, top 3. Where do you think this class finishes? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's talk a little Michigan. The Wolverines, they are hot on the trail. Take us behind the scenes of 2 massive additions, one on the offensive side, one on the defensive side. We're talking offensive tackle Malachi Lee from Hawaii and edge Carter Meadows.
Well, for Malachi Lee, they were the first major program to recruit him out of Hawaii. They got him to campus 4 times, got him to a game, got him to camp. And it was that relationship, the trust, the longstanding relationship, in addition to the program pedigree, the culture, the importance of offensive line play with Sharon Moore, Grant Newsome leading the charge there. I think you're seeing Michigan. There's about 8 or 9 top of the board targets in this class where I think they'll be flexed on the where they will flex their muscle on the NIL arena. And I think Malachi Lee fit that bill too. So Michigan goes out there. They beat Texas, who tried to make a late charge. Alabama and Georgia for one of their most coveted offensive line targets in the country. And then Carter Meadows took his official visit to South Carolina, Ohio State, and Penn State, another coveted target alongside Titan Davis, who committed last week. He just saw himself on and off the field at Michigan. He's a 3.9 GPA guy, the Michigan man deal. Everything that they offer you from a student-athlete standpoint checked all the boxes. And Michigan's had some of the top edge rushers in college football drafted, guys like Aiden Hutchinson. So Michigan had a lot going for it. And no program is doing a better job of just building meaningful relationships with top targets right now. And for Michigan, it's really resonating on the trail as these guys go into decision mode.
Yeah, so much action right now for Michigan fans to follow. But I want to talk about this. Does Michigan have a shot at a historic defensive line class already in the boat? You got Titan Davis, Carter Meadows, Tariq Boney, Mikhail Blade. But Steve, who else could they add?
Well, I think that they're starting the trend for Julian Walker, talking to him after his visit to Michigan 2 weekends ago, and then talking to sources with knowledge of the recruitment. The 4-star pass rusher from South Carolina, I think, is trending towards the maize and blue. So look out for an on-3 RPM in the near future, or a Rivals prediction. I'm still learning all the language here as we integrate Rivals into our terrific platform. But I think Michigan's the one to beat for Julian Walker. And they're also the one to beat for Dorian Barney in the secondary. They just landed Andre Clark. Dorian Barney's going to come off the board on July 5th. Josh Sporstar out of the Peach State, another one of those top-of-the-board targets. At one point, it looked like Penn State. At another point, it looked like Texas A&M. But now that he's in decision time, Dorian Barney is trending towards Michigan. 5 more. There's 5 more coveted targets on defense. You have Damon Benjamin, one of the most coveted corners in the country. Depending on the sources, you hear and Oregon. It's Michigan and Oregon, or Texas and Oregon. But Michigan is one of the fronters for Benjamin after 2 visits this year. They're one of the favorites for Salisi Moa as they battle Tennessee and Utah for the coveted safety, 2-way recruit, top 100 player out of Utah. And then 2 more linebackers they're in on, Braden Rouse and Nick Abrams. They both took official visits to Michigan. I think they got ground to make up with both of them, but they're in the middle of it for those 2 backers. And then they're still shooting their shot with defensive lineman Deuce Geralds.
And there could be more to come on offense, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. July 4th, some fireworks. Keep an eye on four-star receiver Travis Johnson. He was terrific at the overtime OT7 playoff finals over the week, a top 10 performer for Charles Power, Cody Belair, and company in our scouting team. And then target numero uno is obviously Savion Hyder, five-star from Virginia. It's coming down to Michigan and Tennessee. Michigan's always been one of the favorites. Can they bring it home like they brought home Malachi Lee? Can they bring it home like they just brought home Carter Meadows? I think they can. He is a little further into the summer, but it's going to be a lot of Michigan and Savion Hyder moving forward. They're still swinging at five-star receiver Calvin Russell as well.
Georgia is on fire. Let's talk a little Dogs recruiting because UGA, they've gotten 19 commitments since May 1st, 7 in the last 7 days. I think 3 or 4 of them happened right here on this channel. Make sure you guys hit subscribe for those. Big weekend, though, Steve. James Johnson, the number 1 defensive lineman out of the state of Florida, and also Chase Calicut, committed to the Dogs. How'd they pull this one off?
Well, for James J.J. Johnson, they led for much of his process. It just depended on who was the competition. Was it Syracuse? Was it Texas? Was it Miami or Florida? But Trey Scott, the way that Georgia puts out defensive linemen year in and year out, he sees it as a place that he can maximize his potential in Athens, one of the jewels of the class that ranks number 2 nationally. And then Chase Calicut committed to Georgia during the overtime OT7 playoffs. It was the official visit. I mean, Texas was considered the longtime favorite. There was some buzz around Michigan and Washington at various points, but the official visit to Georgia, Kirby Smart, his pedigree of developing defensive backs, playing in that scheme, being pushed, those are some of the biggest factors for Chase Calicut here. I think that had more of an old school style recruitment. He picked the place that's going to get the best out of him from a straight up just player standpoint.
And there are still some big names on the board, a couple 5-stars in state, and Tyler Atkinson and Caden Prothro. Do you see those going the Dogs' way as well?
I certainly could. Was with Tyler Atkinson at the overtime OT7 playoff finals over the weekend. He says that all 4 of his visits are in play. So you got Clemson, you have Georgia, you have Texas, and you have Oregon. And he's still going through his final dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's, but Georgia's obviously the place he's been by far the most. They've been recruiting him since 8th grade. No program is producing linebackers at a higher clip than Georgia right now. And comfortability, proximity to home, I think that Georgia's right there. But are there some programs that could go higher from an NIL perspective? I think that's possible as well. How will that factor into the decision? Time will tell. Texas is a program that's really rising. Just had him on campus this past weekend. I think with them not landing Xavier Griffin, I think it shows that they are all in on Tyler Atkinson, 5-star from Loganville, Grayson, state champion. And then Oregon and Clemson, I think that both those programs have given him a lot to think about, particularly Oregon. Maybe we see Oregon surge here at the end for Tyler Atkinson, but I could definitely see him in Georgia's class. And I think we'd considered them the program that's maybe led the most in his recruitment, but now it's decision time. It's all about who leads at the end. Caden Prothro, saw him at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge early last week. Chad Sims and I both talked to him, logged on 3 RPMs in favor of Caden Prothro to Georgia after talking to him. Dogs will be tough to beat.
All right. Now, Jay Lamar committed to Georgia right here on this channel. 1 running back in the boat, but we know the Dogs are hunting for another. Could they pull Derek Cooper out of South Florida?
They could. I think there's confidence around the Georgia program about their position with Derek Cooper, but when the plane lands, can they get it all the way to between the hedges? Because Miami is looking to divert that thing to Coral Gables, and Texas continues to ramp it up. And on one of the days at the overtime OT7 playoffs, he was decked out in Texas gear. The next day, he was decked out in Miami gear. And those are 2 programs that I think are fully vested in landing Derek Cooper this cycle. So Georgia's going to have some major competition for him. Couple other Georgia targets, Tyreek Boogie Green, safety from Buford. Georgia's in a good position for him. Brett Collegier, they continue to battle USC and Miami for the coveted offensive lineman out of IMG Academy, but they're at the forefront of that recruitment as well.
Let's talk about these Oregon Ducks because they're trending for another elite safety prospect, Devin Jackson. Steve, tell us about it.
Yeah, talking to some Oregon recruits that were at the overtime OT7 finals in South Florida over the weekend, talking to some other sources regarding this recruitment, I think Oregon is the program that has moved into pole position for Devin and will be tough to beat going into his decision.
All right. And it sounds like there could be a big run on offensive line coming to Eugene.
Yeah, a major position emphasis for Oregon as they continue through this recruiting class. They just flipped Kaloe Kelly from Cal on Monday morning, and that is not the only Cal target that they covet right now. Massive offensive lineman Tommy Topi, who committed to Cal in the spring, is someone Oregon has not gone away on. He was at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge early last week, decked out in Ducks gear. Talked to him about Oregon during his time in Indianapolis, and Elite Terry, the level of football Oregon's playing at and the way they're pushing for him down the stretch, he feels like a major priority. I think Oregon ultimately gets that done, gets him flipped, and gets him in the class. And then obviously you have the number 2 offensive tackle in the country, Manny Iheanacho, and the number 3 offensive tackle in the land, Kelvin Obat. Love my prediction in favor of Oregon for Manny Iheanacho, close to putting one in favor of the Ducks for Kelvin Obat as they battle Utah for him. But Oregon pacing for one of the best offensive line classes in the country, and that could come together pretty quickly.
All right, let's give Oregon Duck fans one more name to be excited about.
I can give them a couple names. Why stop at one? Let's start with Jalen Lott, athlete recruit from the Lone Star State. Predicted him to Oregon back in the spring. There's been some major competition since. LSU, USC, Texas, some big NIL numbers thrown around by some of those programs. But I think Oregon, who got the last official visit the weekend of June 20th, leads in Jalen Lott's recruitment at this point. Devon Benjamin, number 1 ranked corner in the country from California. Michigan and Texas doing what they can to get that one done. But Oregon has been the on-3 RPM favorite for quite some time. Ducks working hard to get that one home.
Let's talk a little LSU recruiting because there's some major predictions rolling in for a July 2nd decision coming from edge Trenton Henderson, one of the best pass rushers in America. He's out of Pensacola, Florida. Steve, why is LSU trending just 2 days ahead of this thing?
Well, his official visit in June blew him away. Just getting around Coach Kevin Peoples, Coach Brian Kelly in that program, the way they would utilize him on defense, the point of emphasis that he has in this class, the NIL opportunities. I think LSU came in with a big number. They are trending over Florida and Texas going into his announcement.
All right, Steve, who else do you think the Tigers could be in line for?
Well, let's start with the linebacker position. They are trending for J.J. Bush, who's going to announce his college decision on Wednesday, one of their most coveted second-level defenders in the 2026 class. I think they ultimately get it done for J.J. Bush. You have 5-star defensive lineman Lamar Brown battling Texas A&M. Source this morning says he continues to like where LSU stands, so that's where my on-3 RPM continues to sit. Bryson Cooley, a 4-star offensive tackle out of the state of Mississippi. Continue to like LSU there. They're in a dogfight with South Carolina for 5-star offensive lineman Darius Gray. I think a lot of confidence remains around Baton Rouge about their position for Darius Gray, but South Carolina has looked like the leader at times too. So that is a recruitment that is really coming down to the wire. I expect him to name some top schools in the near future and then continue to work his way through his process as schools like LSU and South Carolina give him a lot to think about. 5-star receiver Calvin Russell has LSU in his lead group out of South Florida. Now, Miami's a program that you're going to want to keep an eye on moving forward. Michigan has done a really nice job. Florida State's coming on strong, but LSU has been one of the mainstays for him as well.